Welcome back, everyone. The topic of this video is going to be how to find hidden trades on unusual whales that can help you line up big winners. But before we get started, just a little bit about myself briefly. My name is Peter Tarr. It's Profits Taken on Twitter.com. I became a professional stock trader and a licensed professional options and derivatives specialist for TD Bank in 2005, a award-winning Inc. 50 CEO, and I am currently a private equity manager who also shares his ideas, tutorials, and other information on Twitter at Profits Taken and also on this YouTube channel. So let's get right into it. So before you get through this video, I highly recommend taking a look at my video breaking down how to use the premium range. That's going to be extremely critical, and I'm going to link to that, but it's very important. So really quickly, I'm going to give a quick recap, but I do recommend watching the video. Now, the general idea here is that you shouldn't be using the exact same premium filter for every security. And a quick way to identify a huckster, fraud, furu, whatever you want to call them, or someone who just doesn't know what they're talking about, I think it's an easy way to say it, is when someone tells you, oh, it's a minimum of $60,000. We only want to see over $60,000 or $40,000 or any kind of number. It doesn't make sense because there's a different amount of activity on different securities. For example, what might be relevant for DKNG, let's say a $23,000 purchase, I think that's relevant given DKNG's options activity and the size of the company. That wouldn't really be relevant to you for a Tesla. It wouldn't indicate a major buyer. And that wouldn't be relevant for something like Apple or the SPY or SPX. So you need to vary your filter, and I take you through how to do that in the options premium filter video. But taking a look at what we see here. So let's say that you come in here and you have a reasonable filter set. And of course, we do know that there is a bottom to this. You don't want to be looking at $500 trades or $1 trades or even $1,000 trades. But again, it depends on the size of the security. One thing to keep in mind that when you do set your filters, let's say you had a $25,000 filter on DKNG, and I think that would be reasonable. One thing that I like to do is I just like to remove all filters and take a quick look, or maybe set it really low to $5,000. Is that because I'm trying to see how many $5,000 transactions there were or how many small transactions there were? No, and I'm going to explain exactly why I remove it. It's because there are hidden trades from institutions, and I'm going to detail that. It doesn't mean it's any sort of cheat code on unusual whales there. You have to search for something differently. But let's use DKNG as an example here. So 520, 1038, 51. These are more than likely, this little batch of trades, more than likely the same institution or whale executing. Now, when you look at them individually, they might miss your filters. Why? Because let's say you even have it at a $15,000 filter. You're not going to see any of these. However, you don't look at it and say, okay, there's a 14, a 13, and a 13. More than likely, you can perceive this as the same transaction because it is the same buyer. Now, what gives me confidence to believe that? Well, first of all, it's never 100% because orders often will get sent at the same time than in batching, but the system is pretty precise, and if you've looked at unusual whales, they do a great job of differentiating. Here's what we're seeing. We're seeing the exact same time down to the second, the exact same strike, expiry date, and the exact same price execution on these trades. That tells us there is an extremely high probability that is the same buyer. So why is this important? Well, if I set my filters, let's just say to 25,000. It's going to be, sorry, that's 250,000, or that's 2,500 here. It's going to be a very, very different look, right? So now we go blank. Now I'm going to just remove that, and we're going to get back to 10,000 here. We have a very different look now, right? So the idea is that it can be hidden from your gaze, hidden from your research, because you're doing the right thing and filtering out the noise. That's extremely important, because if we were to remove all of our filters, there'd be an overwhelming amount of data, and we'd have more noise than we would signal. And I like to speak in terms of noise and signals when I'm looking at stock options flow. Noise meaning an overwhelming amount of data that you can't parse. Signal meaning something that you can use, something that has utility and that gives you direction. And here's unusual whales showing us DKNG at this specific time. This would go down as what I call a hidden trade. So on a normal day, as I showed you, if I set the filters to 25,000, I'm seeing nothing here. But if I'm scalping and again, because it's a Friday, I'd probably be lowering my premium filters, and I explained that in the premium video. I lower my filters and I can see this. Now, what I want to set it to 0 No, because it's zero, as I said, or at a very low number, anything generally under 5,000, you start to see a lot of noise, and it's also a very high probability of that just being a retail trader who's speculating. So I like to go take a look, but again, that doesn't mean that I'm willing to execute. I want to see that it's the exact same time, and that tells me there's a high probability of this being the same trader. And let's take a look here as well and see what happened to DraftKings. So here's the DraftKings chart. This is the 30-minute chart. And for those of you interested, the insider access group that I have through profitstaken.com, this is a swing trade that I called out for underlying, not for stock options. And our entry was to be under $10. And I called this out a few weeks ago. We waited a little bit of time, took a little bit of time. DraftKings got under $10. And of course, we have nearly a 50% return on our money. And there's no time decay because this is an underlying trade. But I want to zoom in on the day these trades were made that we were just looking at. So here we are, and I put a price line here. This is when those transactions went through, right? And so we're seeing that at 51. Of course, it shows as 10:51 on Unusual Whales, 11:51 here because I have Unusual Whales in Central Standard Time. So that's 11:51 Eastern Standard Time, which is what I have my brokerage, in this case, Thinkorswim, when I have it on. And as you see, there's a steep move down. There was also a market sell-off. So that's something that you could capture and see. Let's take a look at another example here. And we're going to move over to PayPal. And when we look at PayPal, you see the same thing here. When we see this from the 18th. Now you could look at this block of trades. Again, you might miss this if you had your filters at 25,000 plus. Look at all these transactions of $25,000. We have the exact same time down to the second, exact same strike, exact same expiration date, same price execution, everything. This is an institution, or this is a whale making a big buy. A buy that would constitute about $250,000. And you see a similar pattern. See that repeating itself shortly thereafter, just seconds later. You can see that's bought in another batch. Now, if you took a look at all of these, let's say that you're over $25,000 on your premium filter, you'd see nothing. And you'd think, okay, there's no whale activity. And I can understand you doing that. But that's why I scale back my filters just to take a look to see if there's any of these sort of duplicate trades, right? And what we see is this is extremely substantial, right? We went from thinking there's nothing when we have anything, even $1 over 25,000, we're thinking no activity here. We set it down, and now we're saying, oh, wow, somebody is making some serious buys here. So this could be very important to you. And of course, I just want to kind of give you an idea. You might think, well, why don't I always just look at charts that way? Why don't I always look at the data on Unusual Whales that way? Well, if we just remove the 2 here and go to 5,000, we see a very, very different story. It just takes a second to load here. But you end up getting, interesting. We'll just wipe those right out. You get a tremendous amount of data, right? So, and then it becomes hard to parse, and you're looking at numbers and think, okay, 660 doesn't matter, this doesn't matter, that does matter. So that's why I don't remove it too far. I think 5,000 is a good threshold. And for institutions as well, the batching of transactions, it becomes more difficult. So while we saw 10 different transactions at $25,000, it's not as though you're going to see a million transactions occur at $1 when someone's making a $1 million purchase. So that gives you an idea. And it's very important here because this helps you on days when you're scalping, also when you're lining up trades. So just remember to be flexible with your premiums options, with your premium filter range. Take another look. Once you're done your research, just back out. That's what I like to do, is take another look, particularly when I'm not seeing a lot of activity like we saw on PayPal. Over 25,000, you see nothing. That's where I back out and say, okay, well, let me just see what would happen if I move this down to 5,000. Just out of curiosity. So it's almost uncovering the hidden trades. And the reason that I refer to them as hidden, because they're hidden from your view, since you are using filters appropriately to screen out information that is more noise than signal, but they can slip by because it's a sneaky way of entering orders is you just have batches of orders for the same price. And again, remember to differentiate. Make sure that we're looking at the same time, same strike. If you're seeing them within minutes of each other, they're not the same. So this is close, right? We're 13 seconds apart, but we have different strike. We have different expiration date, different price, execution, etc. So hopefully that helps you out. If you want to learn more about Unusual Whales, please take a look at my channel. And my code, if you're signing up for a discount, is Profits Taken. If you're interested in learning more from me on trading options, underlying callouts, getting my weekly alerts for trades, and more tutorials, visit profitstaken.com. Hope this was a lot of help to you, and we'll talk to you guys soon.